Hey, what is going on, guys? It's Punkify here on behalf of MMOBomb.com, and welcome back to the Free to Play Podcast, episode 95. Today is December 29th, 2013, only 2 days away from the end of the month in the arrival of 2014. Of course, that being said, that means that, like all other websites, we too have to bring you what we thought was the best and worst games, or our picks, essentially, for 2013, because hey, why not? You know, and we got this in under the wire, 2 days left, you know, it was close, but we're here, we got our lists, we got things to share with you, and hopefully you have things to share with us as well in the comments. Now, to do this sort of like round table discussion for tonight's episode, we have returning after a 2-week hiatus, Kevin. Kevin, no name, last name, how are you doing?
Good. Actually, thankfully, I didn't get very sick this winter. Got the little bit of a cold. I had a big cold early on in the winter, but lately I've been pretty good on that, so it's been exciting. I have missed the podcast, though. I've been kind of sad that I didn't get to be a part of it, so it's good to be back.
Good to have you back. And Jason Winter being in the other corner, who is here rock steady every week. He is like old man Winter, not going anywhere. Jason, how are you doing?
Who's this Kevin guy again?
I don't know, man. In internet
guy you
time,
picked up off the street.
That hurts. I'm sad. I'm gonna go cry in a corner.
he's been gone years. He's been gone long enough for a biography to be written about him. That's how long he's been gone in internet time.
A saucy biography
A
full
saucy
of all
biography.
sex scandals and drugs and everything.
All his
What kind of
party
life
time.
do you think I lead?
It's the behind the scenes on the podcast.
Hey,
It's what we do off air. Those are the real fun times. Jason, how are you doing, man?
I'm doing well. I'm not sick. I'm glad the football season's over because my team was awful.
Oh, that's terrible.
Hey, they did win today. Way to finish it off.
Yeah. Well,
I guess it's
Yay.
those bittersweet victories, you know? Jason, are you and Kevin, are you guys both ready to tell us your dirty secrets, what you thought was the best and the worst in your opinion and only your opinion?
Only my opinion. Yeah, I'm up for this.
All right. Let's go ahead and get right into it. So, 2013. Let's break the year down just a little bit here. Okay, so quite a lot of MOBAs coming out this year. That's a big sort of highlight of the year. We have Prime World, of course, DOTA 2 launching, Infinite Crisis, certainly not in open beta, but might as well be with all the keys that they've given out of the game. A lot of sort of front runners in terms of those always trying to contend with League of Legends. But then we also saw a lot of sort of card games come into the fray. We had the Heroes in Might and Magic TCG. We had, of course, Hearthstone, Card Hunter, just a really weird range of card games I did not expect to sort of show up in 2013. Those are just like the highlight ones as well. What did you guys sort of notice in terms of gaming from what you guys experienced throughout the year? What did you sort of get the impression from this year?
I was honestly surprised with the number of card games. I'm not upset about it. I'm pleasantly surprised. Not only was there a large assortment of them, but they were quality. I wouldn't say there was, for me, a home run hitter, but there was a bunch of really like A-grade, solid games that I see will have a long future ahead of them, especially in ones like Hearthstone, which they put time into trying to keep it balanced, which is I think part of why it's like getting the delays. And then just some other ones that just got some original ideas or are very, very true to the games in which they're based off of. I was expecting the amount of MOBAs, although a few of them did surprise me. But all in all, I didn't really see anything that was like mind-blowing out of the MOBAs. It was just really good to see Dota 2 finally release for me.
yeah. I mean, building off that kind of same notion of there being a lot of MOBAs, a lot of card games. I just thought it was good that we had a varied mix of stuff. It's not the most common free-to-play games, online games you tend to think of prior to now, whether RPGs or shooters.
Mm-hmm.
That's what dominated most of the stuff with MOBAs kind of making their inroads. But the fact that we've got so many different kinds of things, those we talk about, driving games, fighting games, all sorts of different stuff, makes it nice to see that we're finding there's a lot more out there than just a very limited category, and also going beyond like the casual word games or cookie clicker and that kind of stuff or whatever. Actual games you can really get into and play for a while that are separate from the typical RPG shooter mold.
I would definitely say in 2013, we saw a branch, or the initial branch towards the console free-to-play side. I mean, of course, we had like Dust 514. It's sort of notable of coming out last year, or this year rather. I mean, sort of coming into open beta, and that's PS3's mainstay, console only free to play game that initially came out. And then with the PS4 launch, we had, of course, Warframe, we had War Thunder, great game, my pick for 2013, which we'll talk about in just a little bit. And then we had a lot of other sort of PlayStation specific games, talking with, say, the Tekken series going free to play, and then other series sort of like announcing that they're also going to be free to play launching in the near future on the PS4. I definitely would have to say, in terms of MMORPGs for this year, it kind of a low turnout, if you will, for good, solid MMORPGs for the year of 2013. You guys have that same sort of sentiments? I mean, we have like Neverwinter. Can you guys really think of too much more that wasn't like, say, Rift that got converted to free to play, although that was a good choice? I didn't really see too many original free to play MMOs.
Not quality ones, especially. There was one. I'll get into one of my picks later of one that was in a category of MMO that came out, but yeah, nothing that was like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I mean, I'm just trying to make sure I don't say anything you didn't say.
Yeah.
Looking over your stats here. Yeah, that one. Okay. Well, yeah, the other one that I think of that was disappointing was Age of Wushu. I know a lot of people talked about that and how awesome that was for a while, and then it's not like my pick of what was terrible, because I think it was just so small scale that it just didn't take off as much as it did. But yeah, I mean, you have, like I said, Neverwinter probably was the best of the free MMOs this year.
Yeah.
Maybe Rift too, but otherwise there wasn't a whole lot out there.
Yeah, which is sort of surprising, because I think in years past, MMORPGs was like the main, this is the main free-to-play, genre that sort of started out. Like anime MMORPGs, 2D MMORPGs, it all started somewhere. It always originated, seemingly, with RPGs or just some sort of session-based gaming. And we sort of got away from the RPG sense a little this year, started branching out, like you said, into these other card games, these other style of games that weren't necessarily the typical what we saw even last year with Planetside, that being, a shooter MMO. Not too much persistent world stuff here getting a lot of attention this year. While that may necessarily not be a bad thing, it certainly, for some, was a little bit of a bummer. But why don't we go ahead and talk about then what games we felt were the most popular for us personally, what we found to be the most engaging, the most gripping. And I'll go ahead and go first. So for me, my pick in 2013 of the game that I sort of really stood out to me, that I really enjoyed the most, had to have been War Thunder. War Thunder, of course, is developed by Gaijin Entertainment, the same people behind Star Conflict, which was the space version of War Thunder. But War Thunder really stood out on its own, not as just simply a World War II setting version of Star Conflict, but its own game with its own set of rules and its own unique intricacies. And the flight model, although some people said it wasn't very lifelike, I have read a lot on some forums that it was not very simulatory, like what you would actually expect in other simulator type games. But from a casual perspective, or someone who is just getting in or introduced to combat flight sims specifically, War Thunder I thought was a great pick, great to jump in, do a few rounds. They fixed the issue that say World of Tanks had, or even World of Warplanes, and that you only get one vehicle to use that whole round. They give you a plethora of vehicles to use, so if you got shot down early, you could still use them. And then, of course, now it's migrated over to PS4, and they've got the Ground Forces expansion coming out. There's just a lot of good things looking towards the future. There's a lot of good things for War Thunder ahead. So I'm really anxious to see what 2014 will bring from the game. Of course, in the far future, possibly 2015, we're going to be talking about maybe the Sea expansion for War Thunder. But for now, I definitely would have to say that that's going to be my pick for 2013. Jason, why don't we go ahead and migrate to you next? Let's have
Kevin go first.
Kevin, why don't you go ahead and first?
Okay, now I know that my choice is not from 2013, but for me, a game that started off where it was and doing what it's doing, my pick is Planetside 2. Now, the game was already the premier free-to-play shooter. It was the best of the best, amazing graphics, great open gameplay, but the development team just wasn't happy with that. They just hey, people love the game, but we need to make it better. Now, most games usually do this by adding more, content, which they have been doing, but I took a quick break from that to just optimize it. And not just minor optimization, but full overhaul, just do everything they can. The first big patch we saw made huge frame rate increases for everyone across the board. What this did mean is those with like lower end rigs got a chance to actually jump on and play this, which I think is a huge increase in a game base. But then those who already had great games get to even play it even better graphics and just better experience, which I think is just really where you go. The game really didn't have to do anything this year, and they could have been successful, but they worked hard to just keep pushing the envelope, keep making their game as best as they could, make the experience the best for everyone. And I just think that's a great way to go. I wish more companies spend as much time on making sure the game is the best version of itself rather than just adding stuff.
I just realized we didn't actually talk about War Thunder previously when I actually mentioned it, but we'll go ahead and talk about yours, Kevin, and the Planetside 2. Yes, I would have to agree, even though it didn't come out in 2013, there were some major improvements and major updates to the game that have happened throughout the year since, January when it first sort of started rolling out and getting some of its larger actual content updates. The most recent patch updates that's added something like 30 or 40% increased in performance to that certainly have added a lot and opened the game up to a larger audience that maybe previously couldn't experience it due to the high requirements in CPU, graphics card, and with them lowering all that without actually impacting the performance for, the players who can run it at highest settings. I think that was pretty monumental. So interesting that you ended up picking Planetside 2, but I'd have to agree there were some major improvements to the game that would make it something for someone who couldn't maybe previously experience it, want to pick it up in 2013. Jason, do you have anything to add in terms of either War Thunder or Planetside 2? Do you have any comments to add before we moved on to your particular pick?
Yeah, I mean, those are probably the two games that I played the most in terms of free-to-play games. I mean, I played, I don't know, my time on Planetside 2, according to Raptor, this is overall, so it counts some that I did last year, but I think it's like 160 hours or something like that, so it's like, number 6 on my list. So, 201 hours is what it says.
Oh.
So, yeah, I played quite a bit of Planetside 2. My rig is not that great. It still has some issues, so I don't get into as much as I used to, but it was definitely something I enjoyed playing a lot of. As bad as I am at shooters, I still liked it. And War Thunder 2, I mean, that was something that I wasn't expecting at all. It's like we talked about this last week, that I just figured wargaming was all there was, World of Tanks, World of Warplanes. And then this comes out.
War Thunder really did sort of come out of left field. I feel like it really sort of put itself in like the spotlight for this year. I mean, it was one of like the premier free-to-play games for the PS4.
The problem they have though is a visibility problem. Obviously, Wargaming has a 2-year advantage. I read an interview with War Thunder with Guy Jane Entertainment's CEO a couple weeks ago. They said they had like 120 people when they launched, compared to they have like over 1,000 at Wargaming, and he said we had one guy doing PR. So
it's a David and Goliath.
I think last week I was contacted by at least 3 people from Wargaming's PR. So yeah, they definitely had an uphill battle to go, and they're still just not that well known. I mean, they say World of Tanks has like 35 million players, and it's going to take a while and for Guy Gene to get War Thunder up to that level. Now, there's one thing that I saw on Twitter the other day. Someone I follow, he said, I'm in the ground forces beta, and I can't talk about it because of NDA, but it's going to blow World of Tanks away.
Oh, I saw your post on that. Yeah,
that's what he said. So I was like, wow, that's really something.
Yeah, I personally haven't really started playing War Thunder, but I've been hanging around enough and seen it played and watched it, and I've been impressed with how beautiful the game really looks. As far as intuitive, someone I know who just attempted to play it picked it up without too much difficulty, and I think that's really inspired when you have a simulator, which notoriously simulators aren't easy to play when you first start off.
Even the arcade, even when they make them easy to,
Yeah, even when you have like a joystick cockpit version of it. Yeah, exactly. Simulators are difficult. They're intentionally so because they're supposed to be more realistic, but this game really invites players and I think really does a great job of getting them drops the learning curve, I guess you would say, and makes it easy and fun for people to pick up this game, which is I think a huge way to bring people into this genre of game. I mean, if nothing else, World of Warplanes owes it to them because this is an easy way for someone to jump into simulators and be like, I love this game. Let's see what else is out there.
When it comes to simulators, I actually think War Thunder was like one of the most popular, if not the most popular combat sim that came out in 2013, I'd say. I can't really think of even on consoles where simulators seemingly have dominated for a while in terms of combat. We haven't seen too many particularly come out since early 2000s or late 1999s on PC that have been memorable that I can remember. But it certainly seems War Thunder like just solidified itself as like, yeah, you want to play a combat fight sim this year? Play War Thunder. All right, Jason, why don't we go ahead then and move on to you? What's your final, like, what was your pick for 2013? I'm anxious to hear.
Well, here's the problem, is that when you proposed this notion to me a few days ago, and I said, all right, that's great. So I thought of what I wanted to put on there. And I thought, I played a lot of Planetside. Maybe I'll talk about that. Then I see, oh no, Kevin's going to pick Planetside. I thought, well, I played a lot of War Thunder. I'll do that. No, Michael's going to pick War. Damn it. So I looked over my entire list. Again, I went to Raptor. I went through like everything that I'd played over the year, and just looking at the free-to-play games. The problem was, it wasn't anything I played other than those two. There wasn't anything I played that I played a ton of, but I counted like 21 or 22 different free-to-play games that I played. You know, whatever it was, mostly a lot of stuff that we played together. I played still Lord of the Rings Online, so I played some of that. Hawken was some of it. Team Fortress, all the old games and new games, Magicka, Wizard Wars, stuff like that. And that's when it occurred to me that what I liked about the games in 2013 was just that there were so many of them, and that I could sample all of them without having to feel like I had to commit to any of them. And that's sort of the beauty of free to play, is that we're so used to back in the day of, if I'm going to play a game, I got to play it. I got to play it for like 50 to 100 hours to really feel like I enjoyed it. Because a lot of the time you pay 50, 60 bucks for a game. If it's an online game, then maybe you got to pay another 15 bucks a month for your sub or whatever, and you couldn't get into that much just because of money or time or whatever. Whereas now you can try a lot of different stuff. I could say of those 22 games, I probably enjoyed like 20 of them. There's only like one or two that I really like just wouldn't play again if I had the choice. But there's just so much out there between that and all the other games I play that I don't really have a game of the year as much as I have games of the year, and it's just about everything.
It's funny that you say that, because I do have to agree. I think 2013 was the year of free-to-play games that came out where you could jump in, you could have some quick fun, but you didn't have to commit, to have, in the long term, a lot of fun. You could have sort of short instances or bursts of fun, still feel like you're progressing in some sense, but not feel tied down to the game. I mean, you talk about, we had War Thunder is a good example of that with the session-based gaming. I think it's just because a lot of it was session-based gaming. Where we have War Thunder, you have Planetside 2, we can, it's a shooter, you just jump in, you progress some, but you still engage in big battles. But then, in talking about games that actually launched in 2013, you have Path of Exile. Again, a nice, engaging sort of ARPG that you can go and have this huge customization and skill tree and only scratch the surface, yet still just jump in, for an hour at a time, 2 hours, and clear some monsters and get some cool loot, put that stuff on. Marvel Heroes was another example of that. And even with Dota 2, you just have all these really interesting and unique examples of games where they had their own complexities and depth, but none of them are so time-consuming in the sense that you have to actually engage in it to the fullest extent to enjoy what it has to offer with all its complexities. It had seemingly had like a tier of enjoyment for each level of what a player wanted to devote to that game.
Which is not to say that the games that you are going to get hugely into and spend hundreds of hours on. Like, I read about one guy who played like 500 hours of Warframe. It's like, well, good for him, that he found that game that he wants to do that with. And you can still do that. You can still do that with pretty much any of those games if you really want to devote yourself to it, really get down into it and play 500 hours. But you could also just play, a couple hours of Warframe every other week or so, and you still could enjoy it and feel like you're progressing and getting something done. So you don't have to. It's not like an MMO in the old days where you have to raid, 6 hours a week, every week, twice a week or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, I would have to say this year was definitely the year to benefit casual gamers. I mean, if you look at both my pick and both the two main picks, War Thunder is a simulator that is I guess is more inviting to casual players. It's easier to pick up. It's session-based. You don't have to spend a lot of time grinding or whatever. You can pick it up, play for a little bit, set it down, and be really happy. Planetside 2 works the same way. You don't have to spend a lot of time, especially with the new optimizations. It lets new people come in, but you get games like, Dota 2 releasing.
Warframe is a great example.
There's so many games out that came out this year or just, came into their prime this year that just you can spend an hour or two a day at most and be completely happy with your experience. And on top of that, if you want to take those games and spend some serious time on them, they do so reward you that way. It's not like you're just like, oh, if I play for 6 hours, it just gets repetitive. No, you can have a blast playing any of these games for that long because just of what the games have. And there's a lot of those this year. And that's something really kind of exciting, I think, for free-to-play because I think it kind of solidifies them as bringing a casual audience, not just the people who are like, oh, I'm only into this game and this game. It's gonna draw more people to free to play, and it'll make people happier with free to play in general because there's so many games they can pick up, play for a little bit, and go like, I had a great experience. Let's see what other games are out there.
Well, I definitely think that the PS4, we were lucky that the PS4 launched in 2013 because there were certainly a lot of good free-to-play games that got ported over to the PS4 that were notable. Like, I think if you're going to mention War Thunder, you have to mention Warframe because the developers there have been doing a great job of consistently listening to the community feedback and adding new content and content that is more specifically geared towards what the players have been asking. And so I really have to say, if you're going to, include War Thunder and all the other sort of nice games that have both been on PC and are now moving to console, then yeah, I have to agree, Kevin. And definitely casually based, Warframe would be another great option to choose from. So overall, the options, though few, were good options and certainly represented what 2013 meant for free-to-play gaming, session-based, quick in and out sessions of fun with a lot of depth and persistence if you wanted to actually spend the time to continually progress in each one of those. Certainly true. Now for next year, we're going to make this just little curious observations, I wouldn't say predictions, but maybe, notions of what may be to come, if you will. We have, of course, a couple really notable titles next year for free-to-play specifically. Those include EverQuest Next, both Next and Landmark, Black Desert. Then there's some of the more foreign games. Seemingly we're going back to MMORPGs for 2014 with Bless, Monster Hunter Online, Phantasy Star Online 2. Then, of course, you have Blade and Soul, which is supposedly supposed to arrive in North America in 2014. Not really sure if that's going to be free-to-play still yet, but hopefully it is. But that is certainly what we can look forward to in 2014. Now, going back to this year just slightly, let's talk a little bit about what we failed. What failed, not what we failed, but what failed in 2013.
Well, we failed many times.
Yeah, we failed. Oh, yeah. That's like a whole nother show to itself. Like, that's completely separate. There was some duds this year. There were some games that weren't necessarily, things that fanned out. Let's say they were crap, okay? Or they just, not so crap, but certainly what we weren't expecting. So I'm going to go ahead and throw one out, and that's going to be Firefall. This game has been in closed beta was in closed beta for a long, long time. Finally went into open beta this year. And from closed beta to open beta, the actual visible difference was minuscule in terms of the actual content you could do. A lack of new zones, barely any new progression in the story, and really just not that much for you to do after you've sort of maxed out what little you could do with each of your warframes. They changed a lot of the systems multiple times, removed PvP, said they're going to add it back in, fired their CEO, Mark Kern, and really just Red 5 had a terrible year with Firefall. There's a lot of finger pointing right now as to who and what's been responsible, and seems to be pointing a lot towards Mark Kern. But that being said, the whole company and the game itself just was not living up to all of that money spent on marketing said it was going to live up to. So you guys, I'm assuming, agree with that, or what are your sentiments towards your final, I wouldn't say final sentiments, but current sentiments towards Firefall?
This was in my top 2 for the bottom, it was between this and one other for kind of like my biggest disappointments. The game had a ton of hype, and I know people are always going to hype up games, but originally when we kind of caught glimpses of it, it looked like it could live up to it. But just when it came out, without, going too terrible, it just basically pooped the bed. It's like, hey, we have this idea that we're just not going to execute. We're going to, make mistakes, and instead of working on fixing them, we'll just cut stuff back and make excuses and then blame people. And I don't know if it really was all Mark Kern's fault, but I have a hard time believing that an entire company can be ruined by just one person.
He was the CEO.
I mean, that's true, but does he get to make all the decisions? Does he make all the choices? If he does, then that's the company's fault. They shouldn't be giving him that much power, especially if they don't like where he's going. I mean, it's hard for me to believe that it's all his, but at the same time, a lot of stuff happened, like a lot of just shortcomings happened that shouldn't have. So whoever's fault it was, it doesn't matter at the end of the day because this game is not what it could have been, what it should have been. And I don't know if it's ever even going to have that chance now because everyone is so upset and disappointed with it. Like it's going to be hard for them to try to bring people back in, even if they revamp it and get this stuff up and running.
Revamp it again?
Yeah,
You
exactly.
mean? I mean, it's like how many times can they go back to the drawing board?
We're gonna have like APB going its seventh time kind of idea.
But is it even at this point a question of going back to the drawing board? Is it a question of, is what they have right now okay? Do they just need to add more zones? Like, there's so many questions left unanswered with the game, especially now that we've lost Mark Kern. We don't really know what, we've heard so much from Red 5 in terms of where Firefall is heading. I think we've heard more about where Firefall is heading than we've actually heard about where Firefall is currently. But it's we don't really know what the future can hold for Firefall because we don't really know what the future is for Firefall. Like, we don't know if the game could shut down next week or if Red 5 is on a brink of death. And it really, for Firefall, it just kind of seems like they've hit this brick wall, and either they go internal for a while, don't say anything to anyone, and bring out a brand new change that shows that they're moving forward, or it may be the end soon for the big five. That's Red as well.
Yeah, I mean that's what I think you struck on it there, is that there are a lot of talk and not a whole lot of action. It's like, I haven't played it a whole lot. I played it in like 2 separate stints. I played them almost a year apart probably. And other than the change in how the stuff, the basic character composition, it's like I didn't notice any differences in the world. I'm thinking, how do you not add any actual new content, or not really significant enough that I really noticed in the course of a year? What are you doing with all the time, with all the money you're probably bringing in, and so on? And you just wonder. Now go ahead.
There is an interesting post that was on Reddit a few days ago from a verified member of Red 5, which in his opinion spelled out why everything was squandered and Firefall turned out terrible. Long story short, Mark Kern spent a ton of money on his studio project, which, if you guys don't know, Red 5 had a studio built where they were going to do shows. He also spent a lot of money on, of course, the 2 suits that you saw if you ever watched any of the PAX videos.
Don't forget the bus. They had that bus.
Yeah,
too.
The bus was also a huge investment of like $2 or $3 million. And so a lot of money went to these marketing campaigns and these marketing objects for the campaigns. And a lot of the finger pointing is saying this is where Mark Kern was spending a lot of his focus on, and this is why the game was suffering, because he wasn't paying attention to the game, or he was making drastic changes to the game seemingly overnight. I would highly recommend going on Reddit and searching for that article. Take it with a grain of salt, obviously, because an employee, even if a verified employee is talking about this, it could always just be from their opinion, but it may be enlightening.
But remember that post that I found a couple of months ago on Glassdoor from the employees saying just completely lacked focus.
It certainly seems to lining up. It certainly seems to line up with the overall sentiments that you were mentioning on Glass. Mm-hmm. Now, Jason, since I've been talking to you, did you have any sort of like failure game that you wanted to mention for 2013?
I'm not going to mention a game specifically. I'm going to mention a company. I think Hi-Res Studios really, pooped the bed, as Kevin so eloquently put it, in 2013. I mean, they had that like almost a month where it was just one piece of thing after another. They had the thing where they looked like they were violating their own EULA with their launcher. Then they closed down or not closed down, but they stopped development on Tribes and Global Agenda. Then they closed down their forums, told you to go to Reddit. They came up with that thing saying about how they lost like $30 million on Global Agenda. I mean, Smite is still coming along, and that's going to launch, and they better hope that really takes off even more than it has already. But this is a company that, kind of like Red 5, just throwing a bunch of crap against the wall, and hardly any of it is stuck.
Yeah. It kind of seems like a whole company effort, though, with Hi-Res.
Yeah, I don't think it's just one guy, probably. It just, I mean, you never know, because, again, kind of like we think with, like how it seems to be with Mark Kern, it's like if there's one guy at the top who has a final say on all the decisions, and I'm not saying that's the case with, I can't think of his name now.
Todd Harris?
It's Todd Harris, yeah, that's it. Again, I don't know much about him. I'm not going to say that he's the guy or that he's, the one setting those agendas, but all it takes is that one person to be the one in charge and to just mess up everything. So
It is true. I would have to agree with High Res. They've done a lot of naughty things in my books.
Yeah.
a lot of things that I'm not terribly keen about them doing. Particular the whole dropping of development of previous titles and having the software, if not illegally in the ULA, at least suspiciously. Doing some things that at the wrong place, the wrong time is in.
Yeah, right when the whole
NSA thing,
is going on.
This is really bad timing. Just really bad timing. And then Kevin, what was going to go ahead? I know you had your own specific dud for 2013. What was going to be yours?
Yeah, and I'm not going to call it the worst game like ever or of the year, but I mean, might be, but definitely the biggest disappointment. It was Dragon's Prophet, because I mean, I thought the game had some really cool ideas, but as far as execution, it just failed everywhere. I mean, when I sat down to actually play it, like, the localization was terrible. Half of it was either not translated or mistranslated or weird gaps and stuff. Tons of bugs, whether it was just flat out crashing on me or couldn't complete a main quest because a person just disappeared or like an object disappeared or just whatever it was. And the quests themselves were just the exact same thing over and over again. The idea was great. Like, I mean, all kinds of dragons, cool. Like, give you kind of the Pokemon feeling, but with dragons and some awesomeness. But when it got down to it, it was just like tedious and
a tiny mini game and
yeah, and just full of issues. So many like just big issues. And one of the most upsetting things was they do this whole like, oh, all these dragons, you get so many of them, blah blah blah. You get it in play, you're like, oh, you get 2. And you're like, what? And you're like, oh yeah, you can buy more, but for a free-to-play game, yeah, we're only giving you 2 dragons, even though that's what the entire game is
2
supposed to be about.
For dragons, yeah.
So I was like, it was. I mean, I was really looking forward to the game when I saw it in the beginning, and then once I picked it up, I was just like, man, this is bad. Like, how do you? The localization was probably just surprising for me, especially.
Localization, yeah. I mean, I hate to judge a game in beta. That was when I played it. I played it near one of the late betas, and I didn't want to touch it again after I got out of like the 2 hours that I spent in it.
And I think that's one thing to mention. You say it was in beta. A lot of us experienced the game in beta, and of course, a lot of people in the comments will be like, "Well, the game's gotten better since then. It's gotten patches or what have you." And probably a lot of the localization has been cleaned up, and there probably has been a lot of bugs that have been fixed. I hopefully think so. I do know that at SOE Live they were touting some of the new content they were going to be adding to the game. But I think what's really important to touch on here is fundamentally at its core, it was flawed at the beginning. It didn't have particularly the most interesting mechanics, and a lot of the game just seemed to be half baked or just like a only so attempt at really trying to execute on what they were trying to do. That it just wasn't overall, I think, fun. Is the main thing. It could have been a lot better for what they were trying to accomplish, and whether it be the questing mechanics or just the overall combat mechanics or just the overall feeling of the game in general. And then you just couple that with the whole cash mechanics of having to buy extra slots. But in particular, we talk about how bad the game was in beta, but you got to remember the game was marketed in beta. It was marketed as like, oh, come play, you can buy all the stuff and get in early. They always have that sort of marketing tone as if the game is going to be awesome from the get-go. And it's funny because even in open beta, which there was no more wipes, which we all would consider a soft launch, the game would be complete or moving forward towards completion if you're going to keep your character. We still experience quite a number of bugs and issues with the game even at that point, and I'm sure it took a while for them even leading up to launch to correct those, because I was sort of paying attention and saw that their people were still having those ailments. So certainly, yeah, I would have to agree. When it came to MMORPGs, there just wasn't a lot. There was a lot of sort of like Dragon's Prophet stories where an MMO came out and it was like, it's got 1 or 2 interesting kind of things, but overall, it's forgettable.
See, that's the thing. That's what I think. I mean, there's still somewhat of a place for that, but I think a lot of the MMOs are like, this is exactly like World of Warcraft. It's go kill 10 things, level up, and then quest and raid and so on. But we added this one thing. There's dragons, or there's there's spaceships, or there's whatever. It's all exactly the same. But this one little extra thing we added, that's not enough. It's not enough for me. I mean, I want to play something that's got going to have something very different. Reinvent the formula, whether it's like EverQuest Next or Guild Wars 2, or even a good sandbox like Eve or something like that. Just something different than just the same thing with one change.
Well,
I'm
I would appreciate it if the change they're touting they actually live up to. Like in Dragon
Well, that
Prophet's
too.
thing is like, hey,
Yeah.
we have all these dragons, and one, it's like, well, no, a bunch of them are just reskins of other ones. But then two, yeah, like, oh, I get 2 dragon slots. Like, this is not what they said it was even. Like, it would upset me less if they had at least lived up to that part. And yeah, it was still just like repetitive and all this. I've been like, at least I get the dragons, and maybe I'll look at this. But the exact thing that they said made them so unique is what they had the biggest issue in really living up to. Just and yeah, they weren't the only game that did something like that, which is
That's just going to be the biggest thing about 2014 is we have all these games coming out that have all these interesting promised features. Whether it be the combat being so smooth and silky like in Blade and Soul. What else is going to be smooth and silky in Blade and Soul? You got all these questions. How much of these games going to live up to what they're promising next year? And really good for me. I'm really going to be looking at EverQuest as sort of being that Sony trying to set that new benchmark like they set with Planetside originally, like they set with the original EverQuest, and what they said again with Planetside 2. And I think I'm really interested to see how well SOE can actually execute on what they're touting to be able to do. Because if anything, EverQuest Next and Landmark are the games that I think about when I think of 2014 as next gen, or certainly something that hasn't been done this year, kind of thing. And I did air quotes when I said next gen there.
I saw those. I saw you do those.
So you could hear my bones creaking as I did the.
I'm
wait,
old,
are
man.
you like
I have
80
freaky
now or a
bones.
skeleton?
I'm old. I do look like Skeletor. I'm super skinny. Haven't you seen me in the pod?
He-Man.
Ah. All right, well, why don't we go ahead then and move on to the weekly bombs. We had a nice discussion there, 2013. We're packaging that year up. We're going to put it on the shelf, only to look at it 20 years from now, maybe, with the grandchildren. But until then, we've got some bombs to talk about. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly go first. I'm going to go ahead and give an A-bomb to crappy weather destroying indie game studios, because that's always a terrible thing. In this case, Hello Games, who you may or may not know, they're making a pretty interesting little game called No Man's Sky, which I talked about as a dub-bomb a while back. Their studios got flooded. It was like biblical amounts coming through the windows, they said, which was crazy. I can't believe, can you imagine just like a little indie studio? They're like, oh, I'm just working on this computer, and then water just floods through the windows. And they lost everything. They lost everything in that office. No insurance either. Or rather, their insurance didn't cover it because it was in a flood zone, quote unquote. So they lost everything. Who knows how much of that was actual game material they lost, because hopefully they had backups off-site. But who knows how much of that was actually backed up versus what they were working on currently. So Godspeed to you guys, Hello Games. Hopefully everything works out for you and you can continue making pretty awesome little indie titles. I'm looking forward to it.
Hopefully it won't turn out like that one, I don't know, some Asian MMO that got deleted accidentally because they didn't back it up or something. And
Really? I think
someone
I
accident-
remember that.
Someone hit Control Alt Delete or did the reformat or whatever, and it just all went away.
Well, the work's completely gone at that point. What are you going to do? Fire everybody, go home.
Yep.
That's
All
lunch,
right.
guys. That's lunch.
So, Jason, what's going to be your A-bomb for today?
I'm going to give an A-bomb to 38 Studios and Project Copernicus, which might finally be completely dead and buried. As you know, it was Kurt Schilling's, MMO that was going to be the greatest thing ever, and the whole company went belly up about a year and a half ago. And then about 2 weeks ago, it was going to be auctioned off. The assets were going to be auctioned off to help raise money for the state of Rhode Island, which was still like $100 million in debt for it. And it didn't buy. Nobody bought it. And then about a week later, or at least a few days later, the governor of Rhode Island, who'd been pretty critical of the whole project, he was not the governor who approved the loan. He wasn't in office when that originally happened. But he's taken a lot of flack for this. So he came out and said the game was, quote, a lot of junk. And it says he cried every step of the loan process for 38 Studios. It says people just panicked and gave a retired baseball player a huge amount of taxpayer money. And so, yeah, he gets a lot of flack for this. But it's like, guys, this game was in development for like 5 years. We do nothing about it. Well, I won't say nothing. I mean, we were told everything. We were promised everything for this game. And then a few days before it all went up, the governor started talking crap about it. And now everyone says, "Oh, the governor made it all fail." It's like he didn't do anything until the very end. He didn't make it fail.
There has to be a scapegoat. There has to be a scapegoat.
Well, but how about the people who are working on it? Because they don't want to do that because, we all love our gamers and we all hate the evil politicians and so on. And Kurt Schilling was one of us and so on. All they did was talk about how great it was. I could do that. I could come up. Give me a week or so, and I'll come up with a sheet. I'll come up with a great description of an incredible RPG, and then I won't do anything with it for 5 years. I just keep telling you about it.
It's like the best job ever.
I know. That would be awesome if I could do that. So it's nothing. It was nothing. It was never going to be anything. I don't know about that, but just let it go.
Let it die in peace. Just let it sit over there in the corner. Just don't touch
They got you. Just lick your wounds and walk away.
I mean, it's one thing to be hyped up about a game when we see screenshots and videos or whatever, but we didn't even see that much until like a day before it went off. They showed us like we got a fly-through video.
Ooh. They had an environment.
That means it's going to be incredible.
That literally means they had an environment that was lit, and then they had a camera just pan through it.
Pretty much, but yeah, I mean, I'll agree. A lot of the stuff they described as they were going to do, I don't even remember what most of it was. It sounded really awesome, but I could also describe incredible things to do in an MMO. Doesn't mean my programmers can make it. So
you're like, I'm going to make them the most realistic, real-time combat MMO ever. And
when you get shot in this shooter, you're going to feel pain.
It's going to be like .hack.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good series.
Kevin, what was your bomb?
Well, as Jason probably has noticed a lot more, I've been a lot more active with my Twitter recently. I'm not going to say I'm like always on or anything, but I've been doing better and I've been really happy with it. I've actually seen more interaction from the community. Case in point, actually my bomb goes to the Green Human, one of my followers. He a couple weeks ago when I wasn't getting to do the podcast, I was like, "Oh, I don't get to do it." So I told people that they could flip tables and chairs or whatever they want, but I wanted to see photos of it. So he thought it would be cool to flip the entire world. So he did, and I thought that was cool, and I definitely want to give him a shout out. And I really appreciate all the people who have been interacting with me on Twitter. It's been actually making it easier to stay on it, and it's something I'm going to work on in the new year too. Just make sure I actually just use it more. So
you're up to 18 followers, man. You can do it.
Yeah, you know what? It's once I really started using it, and just like hear things here and there, it just gets easier. So I think it's going to snowball into some momentum to be a more active Twitter.
You're getting sucked into the social life.
Oh, I'm gonna have to change my name to like lots of social media. K.
There you go.
All right, and for the member bombs this week, we had, starting off, a member bomb from V2099 who says, "The bomb to Steam and all sale outlets. Let's get the best bang for our buck."
Here.
See what the new sales are. Hang on a sec. Sorry,
Steam
guys.
sales this month have been insane.
They've been very good. I picked up 3 games off of Steam sales. 3 games. It's quite nice. I'm enjoying
BioShock Infinite is on right now.
Well, yeah, they were doing the BioShock trilogy, but I just love that Steam even does this, that they just drop these prices so low. They're like, you know what, here's $5 for this amazing game. Yeah, it's only going to get it for like, you can only buy it like 1 week, but just...
sometimes it's 1 day.
Yeah, but I just love that idea. I mean, it really gives people the chance to play games they wouldn't otherwise do it. So,
50% off, 70% off. I mean, who can pass up a game for like $4? I mean, come on.
Yeah, especially some of the games they put on for $4. You're like, are you kidding me?
Exactly. And then, Kevin, why don't you go ahead and take the next member bomb?
Ren the Rose. It's an A-bomb for Archblade sword change-up. It's getting harder and harder for me to master my character when all I fight are popular characters. No one seems to choose random characters and focus one character for their playstyle. It wouldn't be so bad if people just didn't use only the overpowered characters. So yes, I've heard this a lot about Archblade. I mean, we've noticed that when we were playing in the beta, that the characters aren't balanced. And it's something that still hasn't been changed as far as I was aware of. So I can see that a store getting swapped up and everything, making it so just people are always using these overpowered, could get very frustrating. And I feel for her on that one.
Especially in a fighting game. You know, Archblade is supposed to be like a 3D fighting game.
Yeah.
And it kind of sucks when no one actually plays all the fighters.
Well, it's incredibly hard because, I mean, if you play one where they are balanced, but someone just has a lot of experience, it can be bad. But to completely just give someone that's all they play is this overpowered and you try to jump on some random one, I doubt that's even going to be remotely enjoyable. You're just going to be like, oh, I died. Oh, I died. Oh, I died.
not only that, but if you got to think about it, like if you look at a game like Marvel vs. Capcom, you know, there's a large variety of competitive characters in that game that are good for competition. Whereas maybe for Archblade, there's only a set number of characters that really excel overall.
I think it's like 3.
Yeah, and then everybody else is sort of average. There's not really a pool of competitive characters yet because they're not balanced enough. So that really then, you know, sort of adds to it. Because I believe in Archblade you can play, there can be multiple characters of the same type on one team.
Yeah.
Which means, of course, you know, everybody would just play the same character. But yes, Rin the Rose, I feel for you. Hopefully they get balanced eventually. But thanks for going ahead and dropping us a bomb. I haven't heard you give us a bomb in quite a while, so glad to see different members here joining in. Now, the question of the week last week was, is hardcore role-playing dead in MMOs? And we actually got a couple really good responses. Jason, why don't you go ahead and take the first response here?
Okay, this is from Lepinos, and he says, me and my 2 best friends have a character in Ion, which is pure roleplay. I don't think role-playing is dead, but it's definitely not popular and common to see in MMOs these days. And I think it's because of stats and grinding. The reason I say that is if you have stats for everything and you actually work for the items that give you those stats, it feels more like working on something that is not so special and like magical per se. Yeah, I can agree with him that most people play MMOs for the gameplay, for the
numbers.
For the numbers, yeah, or even just for the achievements or whatever like that. You don't really see a whole lot of people playing with the express purpose of role playing or making characters that are for role playing. I don't think, for one thing, the system really rewards you for that. You know, for one thing, like if you play a pen and paper role playing game, the GM might give you some extra experience points if you really role play out your character. If you're, you know, some foppish dandy and you refuse to speak to some NPC because he's all dirty, the GM will go, "Oh, that's cool. You know, he did that, so I'll give him a little extra bonus because it fits in with his character." Whereas there's nothing really like that in MMOs, and if there were, then people would exploit it. You know, you'd make the foppish dandy character, and then, oh, well, I get more experience points if I don't talk to this guy, so I'm going to make sure not to do it. Yeah, so it's something that's really tough, I think, to actually put into an RPG to give it that real gameplay incentive, and therefore people don't do it.
You know, it's funny you mentioned that, because even if you look at, say, like Star Wars The Old Republic, where they've sort of implemented role-playing into the actual gameplay, you know, you choose your character's response. Well, how would your character respond? Most people nowadays just choose the optimized response, whatever gives them the most light points or dark points, so that their character progresses down the dark tree or the light tree.
Exactly. Well, and it's like that even in like the old single-player you know, Star Wars Old Republic games. You did the same sort of thing. And
it wasn't about how you felt with your character. It's about the stats.
Right, or in, you know, like BioWare and Mass Effect or something like that. Exactly. You do the same kind of thing.
Exactly. All right, well, the next comment here is from Alte Jr., who says, whilst some games may lack the contributing factor to hardcore role-playing, such as iconic scenes and great storytelling, which is greatly displayed by both World of Warcraft and Star Wars The Old Republic, which I just mentioned, another factor is the gaming community. It seems, at least how I perceive it, that people nowadays are not very familiar with the term role-playing, the true definition of role-playing, that is. Hardcore role-players, on the other hand, when they want to display the role-playing finery, they mention classic games such as Baldur's Gate, whilst the contemporary gamers, or let's say the casual gamers, are simply bewildered. As a counter-argument, the casual player compares the visuals, animations, and not much that true role-playing aspect of the game. People have lost their sense of role-playing. Instead, they are satiated. I can't say that word with satiated by give it grinding fests. I would have to definitely agree to that, you know, to an extent, per se. A lot of people role-play immersively through visuals, and others role play through how they talk and what they say. There's sort of two sort of distinct variation of role playing. Some people, like Jason mentioned, go for, you know, achievement points or, you know, what have you, and for that character they may want to get a specific type of armor because it looks a certain way on them, you know, cosmetically, and that gives them the look that they're trying to portray. You know, that's a form of role playing. Whereas other people, more hardcore, may just view it as the actual interaction and being in character 24/7, which I would argue is much easier to do in a sandbox game than a game that has quests, like we mentioned, because the questing sort of puts certain rules and guidelines on how you have to act in the game for the game to react back to you.
It's just a case, I think, of an MMORPG not being well suited for that sort of thing. It's not really, they're not really designed for that, as opposed to like playing Dungeons and Dragons pen and paper.
That is very true.
Yeah, pen and paper is always going to be where role playing will live. On the online thing, I don't know. I mean, that's probably the biggest issue is it's hard to really match that same level of being in the character just because so much is done for you. I mean, as much as you can customize your characters, there's still a lot of choices made for you these games compared to like pen and paper. So I don't think role playing's dead, but I think it's very restricted in what it can be online.
Do you
And
think...
No, go ahead.
I'm going to blow your mind right now. Do you think the invention of the Oculus Rift and that progression of technology will bring back role-playing in MMOs if you could suddenly have it sort of like, you know, Dot Hack, where you can look around and your character is actually in there and you can actually feel like it's first person in that respect?
If we added in like real-time like voice and stuff, yes, I think that will bring. I mean, yeah, if you made like Dot Hack become relevant, where you could really full-time play that character and make your pen and paper come to real life, I think would completely bring it back. Just adding the ocular, it would help. It doesn't really just to let you make full choices. It just makes them the more choices that you do make that are made for you more visually impressive and more immersive. But
I certainly think that it adds to it. It starts going down that like train of thought.
It heads down that
ahead.
path.
Yeah.
It just doesn't get you on the train.
I think we need the holodeck from Star Trek to get fully to that point.
I'm convinced Dot Hack will happen eventually. I'm convinced Dot Hack is like the way MMOs are headed, especially now with the Oculus Rift. I've been watching Dot Hack and I'm like, oh, this game knows the, like, there's some stuff that's a little bit old school MMO in there. You know, it's aged a little bit, at least the original series. But I see it as like a natural progression towards where MMOs are heading, especially with the Oculus Rift. I mean, that's the next thing. The only reason we play in third person now is because it's easier, because it's from a gaming perspective. But if you could play in first person and actually feel like you're in first person, that'd be something completely new, and that excites me.
Well, yeah, I think the biggest shortcoming to first person outside of having the ocular rift is like spatial awareness. Is you can't really see around you the same, or at least you get that feeling of what's going on around you compared to third person, but you bring yourself into the game and I think that changes. So
yeah, if you were forced to play, if everybody was forced to play in first person, then it completely changes how the game is played, because in that sense no one has that spatial awareness. You know, everybody is sort of forced into that cone, but you have to also consider the fact that if they could make it more towards like how humans view their surroundings, because we have spatial awareness, and the Oculus Rift certainly adds a little bit of that sense of spatial awareness. So if they could perfect that, then I could definitely see it being a gripping experience, and certainly nothing like you're just looking at a monitor. That's going to go ahead and conclude this week's responses to the Hardcore Role-Playing Dead question. As for next week, though, I want to know, what was your favorite gaming moment of 2013? Just pick one. And it could be from a free-to-play game or not, but what was your most outstanding gameplay moment that you can remember? First-person shooter, you got an awesome kill, RPG, it was an awesome moment, MMO, it doesn't matter what it was. Let us know in the comments down below, and I'll be sure to grab an extra special few of them to sort of get a broad representation of what you guys actually enjoyed from 2013. Alright, so this is the part of the show where we let you guys know how to contact us if for some reason you want to flip the world, give us a cake, or just tell us how awesome we are, I guess. That's mainly for Jason, that last one. Jason Winter, how can people tell you how awesome you are?
Well, you can tell me how awesome I am on Twitter at WinterInformal. You can watch my totally awesome streams at twitch.tv/JasonWinter. And you can read my awesome writing at jasonwinter.wordpress.com.
I'm typing to you right now. I'm just solidifying. I'm just, adding to that.
You're making sure that everybody knows how awesome I am.
Making sure I'm just adding to it. All right, Kevin, how can people reach you?
You can get a hold of me on Twitter at NoSocialMediaK, and I will respond to you probably pretty quick. I've been really good about that lately, and I'm always happy to add more people. I also have started following the people that follow me so that I will still know what you guys are up to as well. So don't feel like it's just a one-way relationship. I care about you. I care about you.
Just bad news, though. I just checked. There is already somebody with the account Social Media K.
Oh, they're stealing it. Well, I'll figure out something. I'll figure out something for when I switch over, guys.
He's not gonna. Don't switch over. That's like rule number 1 of social media. Don't get rid of what you already have.
I switched mine. I used to have a terrible Twitter handle.
That's before people knew you, Jason. It's before you were famous.
Sure.
And of course, for me, guys, if you want to reach me, you can do so by emailing me at michael@mmobomb.com. That's if you want to write me a long, saucy message. Saucy. It's got to be saucy. It's got to be a lot of spaghetti. A lot of marinara. A lot of marinara. If you want to just write me a quickie, you can do so on Twitter at Spunkify. That's SPUNKIFY. And just let me know how everything's going, and who knows, maybe I'll just reply back and let you know how my day's going too, and then we can chat it up and meet somewhere for coffee. Who knows? But anyways, guys, that's going to be this episode here of the Free to Play Podcast. Hope you enjoyed it. As always, we'll see you guys next week. That is, if we don't first die in the apocalypse. Wait, what year is it? That's where
that was last year.
That was like 2 years ago. Oh, damn.
No, it was last year.
It was, but in just a couple days, it'll be 2 years ago. If you don't actually count months.
All right.
Just by years. I don't know. This is the part where we always have to end it awkwardly, you know?
Yeah,
how
the
we do
awkward
it.
sign-off.
The awkward sign-off. Come on. This is like the normal thing. All right, guys. See you later. Spunkify out.